Okay, hey everybody, Michael McCracken here. Hopefully you're joining us on one of our streaming platforms right now on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. Thanks so much for joining me today. Don't worry, it's not just me. I have Caroline waiting in the wings. But I just want to start off by saying thank you for joining us on Vagabond Live today. And for those of you who are able to, feel free to pop in and you can write a comment, or you can ask questions for Caroline. You can just come on and be part of the conversation. And there also is again, if anybody shows up, we'll see, because again, this is a new thing for us. Say new, it's been a couple of years. It's been about 2 years, but we're back at it. And if anybody comes in and makes a comment or asks a question, then I'll try and we'll be giving away a free business coaching. So so feel free to comment, like, all that stuff, and we'll be running that a little bit later. So without further ado, because you're not here to probably hear me talk, I'm going to bring in Caroline. Caroline. Hi, how's it going? I'm going to switch our view. Is that, yeah? How's it going?
Great, thank you. How are you?
Good, letting that internet catch up. I think it's a little buzzy, but let's try it again.
Mine's a little buzzy as well.
Okay, so maybe it's just the internet. Welcome to the internet. Hi, how's it going? Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Good, thanks so much for coming on Vagabond Live to chat. I feel like I need a coffee. That looks so comfy. It's just there with your coffee. Yeah, thanks so much for joining. So I want to start off again. This is just this can be just a conversation between us, and if people pop on and have things to say, we will see it. But I just want to start off. You're from Texas, is that correct?
Mostly, yeah.
Mostly. Okay. Well, please expound on that. What's mostly?
I'll give you the quickest version that I can. It was Albuquerque, New Mexico is where I was born, and then Lubbock, Texas, Las Cruces, New Mexico, Apple Valley, California, Columbia, Missouri, Corpus Christi, Texas, San Antonio, Corpus, Chicago.
So just a little bit of everywhere around.
Yeah, but a lot of concentration in Texas. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you? That is traveling, right? Vagabonding, if you will.
For sure.
Yeah. So did you move to Chicago? Was that your first experience for Columbia? Is that right? Or
that's right. Yeah. I came up. I did my first year of college in Texas, and then came up and finished out at Columbia.
Yeah. What? Oh, okay, gotcha. So, was there any specific reason why you're like Chicago or Columbia? Was there a reason for moving up this way?
Sort of. When I graduated from high school, I started working at an improv comedy club called Joker's Wild in Corpus Christi. And one of the troupe members there was also an ensemble member at Steep Theater, which is still in existence up in Edgewater now. And we just became really good friends. And through a lot of fortunate series of events, I kind of ended up on a whim coming up here and stuck around.
Yeah. So you said it was an improv theater. Did you do improv? Did you do any of that while you're down there?
I did. Not well. It was such an interesting place. It was a comedy club on Fridays and Saturdays. And then a karaoke bar Sunday through Thursday. And so I originally got hired to run the sound, and that was like the trial period, and then got bumped up into the improv troupe. But I was also I was the only female on the troupe, and I was also 17. Everybody else was really good at what they did, and adults. So I played a lot of this, the straight people for their comedy, which was great. I still do that.
Did you? I'm assuming that was your first foray into the theater. Did you what was the spark, if you will? What was the thing that really? You say, that's something I want to do.
Really practically, it was because theater was often the first class that happened, and I went to 3 schools. I went to 3 different high schools, And starting in middle school, it started to become, because it was about every 18 months, so 3 years in middle school, I was in three different states and three different schools. And it became a bit of like a defense mechanism. It was either sports or theater. It was the first, or band were the first classes in the morning. And so it initially was to help me find a place to sit at lunch so I didn't have to sit by myself. And then just became a thing where I think a lot of people felt that way. And so you sort of find community accidentally. And then it became a thing that was, I did like competitive theater in high school. We had theater tournaments in Texas.
Yeah, I know, right? What is that? What is that? I mean, why do they make more that kind of
I
art?
don't know.
Welcome, like in high school, it's like make it competitive.
It's totally, and I know that it's national, but Texas feels particularly competitive, kind of in all arenas.
Yeah.
There's a playwright named Vichet Chum who wrote Bald Sisters that we produced at Steppenwolf, and he's also a beautiful actor and a wonderful human being. But he grew up in Plano, Texas, and we discovered that like at one point in time we were competing against each other at isn't that wild?
Yeah.
And the thing about, there were three like hyper competitive schools, and his was one of them, and they used to call them the practice. Do you remember the opening of the practice, that law procedural? They walk kind of in like a bird formation, and like the double doors open and they're wearing suits, and their theater instructor told them that's how they needed to enter every tournament, was like in this formation with the doors opening. And he wrote an entire play about it, about competitive theater in Texas. It's fantastic and terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. You know, like we did. I mean, we had it in Georgia too, and I'm just saying, one year we got first place.
No big deal. One act.
No big deal. Yeah, one act competition. Yeah, and it felt like a big deal at the time. You know, it's just funny how it's like competition. You know, from the get go. I had another question for you from all that. Well, you moved to, we'll jump ahead. You moved to Chicago. Oh, and for anybody watching, again, Jill, throw this out a few times. Feel free to ask a question for Carolina if you have one, or feel free to, again, make a comment. All those things, we're here and we're following along. No, I had a really good comment, but now I forgot it. But what I want to say is, one of my favorite shows that I saw you in was The Flick. And I remember going to see that show, and very controversial in a very strange way. You know, as, you know, the amount of silence in that play was so good. I mean, you know, for me as a theater person, right? Like going to see it, going like, I love what we're doing with the medium here. Do you know what I mean, right? As far as like, you know, what this is and what this is saying, but it wasn't right for all theater goers. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't right for, maybe it wasn't right for everybody, but I just remember, what was your experience working on that show?
Annie Baker is the playwright, and she's really specific about the usage of time in that play specifically. There's a scene where there's a Jay-Z song that pops up, and the stage direction is you must dance to the entirety of the song, which is like 2.5 minutes. It's really long. And I am not a movement person. I'm not a dancer. She also says that every night it should be something new. So it couldn't be something that was choreographed. So it that play, I mean, for a lot of reasons was a study in patience, for reasons that like we had to get comfortable in sitting in our own silences. I think we had to get comfortable like just being watched. Like it's a weird thing to say. I feel like a lot of times it's easy to forget that you're being watched on stage, because if you're like, hopefully you're in the scene with your scene partner, you just have that moment of sort of briefly forgetting that there are people around you. But when you're forced to sort of sit in silence and take in all of the noises from 360 degrees of the theater, both from your own sort of heart beating and your scene partner and the way that they're breathing, and then no, what happened is not occasionally, pretty frequently, we'd have people get up and walk out because they didn't like it. And so then it was also then like, it was just a lot of focus. It was a lot of concentration. It was also a really long run. I think we ran for like, the process was 5 months. And from beginning to end, not the entire run, but from rehearsals to closing. And Yeah, it was just it took a lot it took a lot of focus. It took a lot
Yeah,
of patience, and it took a lot of like endurance actually
yeah,
is something that I would say is was the thing, because we also, on two show Wednesdays or two show Saturdays or Sundays or whatever, we only had about 45-minute, like a 45-minute turnaround from the end of the show to the beginning of the next one. So it was like eat, rest, hydrate, and go.
right,
I also had to stay in that booth in the
right,
top
yeah.
for huge amounts of time. I mean, I think the longest time that I was in there was like 45 minutes. And there's like a window there, so you had to like army crawl to get to the other side where there wasn't the window.
Oh man, yeah. It was a trip of a show, and again, I think the people in front of us did end up walking out, but we stuck
Yeah.
with it. It was
Yeah.
fun. Do you mind talking a little bit about about your journey here in Chicago, right? So, you start with, I don't want to say start with Steep, but like, Steep is kind of, maybe would you say your first home, and then kind of grew out of that into Steppenwolf and beyond?
Totally. Steep is definitely my original artistic home. It was where I did my first professional show. We did Of Mice and Men in 2004, I think. Um, and from there, just kind of started working around storefronts. I got to go and work at Straw Dog and Mary Archie, and then got cast in a couple of shows in the Steppenwolf Garage. Um, that were part of some series that don't really exist anymore. One was a new playwriting series, and the other was a showcase for Northwestern graduate directors, to sort of feel what a full production is, with institutional support. And from there, I got to audition for Three Sisters that Tracy Letts adapted from Anton Chekhov that Anna Shapiro was directing, and just I mean, I kind of hit the ground running from there. I started doing a lot of workshops with Steppenwolf. One of the cool things, though, that I think about is very unique to Chicago is the fact that you can really go backwards and forwards from a big theater like Court or Steppenwolf or Shakes or Goodman or whatever, and then go back to Steep or Straw Dog or Raven or The Gift, Red Orc, all of these places, and like it doesn't feel like there's a barrier to sort of cross between. And I think that's true for designers and directors and actors and playwrights. And it's just like it is just a different type of skill that's needed for all those things. And then in 2015, I took a show that we started at Steppenwolf to Broadway and started doing some work in New York and kind of on the Eastern Seaboard, and keeping my channels open between here and there since then.
Yeah. Do you mind talking a second about, I guess your transition from theater to, TV and film? Because you do a good now, and so like, what was that kind of journey as far as like, I say making the move, but just like transitioning to like doing more of a different medium?
I my first TV job was on Chicago Fire, and I had, I think, two lines. My line was, "Don't take my baby, that's my baby." And right as I was falling asleep, my partner goes, "What if you said bagel?" And so like my call was like 4 a.m. I'd never
Oh,
been on. I'm blushing even now just thinking about it, because I was like, "It's don't take my bagel. That's no. It's don't take my baby. That's my." I mean, just like,
right.
I mean, really, I'm like getting heated just thinking about it. I was so nervous, and like it was February. It was so cold, and I was in one of those tiny little trailer rooms, like not, and they had to like put a space heater in it. And then I ended up auditioning for something on Chicago PD years later that ended up sort of like becoming a recurring role for 4 or 5 seasons. I don't remember. And it was really interesting because around that same time, there were two, Caitlin Parrish and Erica Weiss, who are Chicago artists who are now doing things like well beyond our city limits. Made a show called The Red Line, and it was really interesting going from a Dick Wolf set, which is very much like a machine. I mean, they do a ton of episodes, and they crank them out, and they know exactly how much time they need, and it is a very well-oiled machine, but it's really pressurized because they do so many episodes and because it's so procedural. that they only have a certain amount of time, and then to go to a set that felt a little bit more, just for lack of a better term, artisanal.
Mhm.
It was, we had time to rehearse, and Erica and Caitlin were really passionate about giving their actors time to sort of do all that. And from there, I've actually, is this true? From there, I've actually only gotten to work on TV shows that are run by theater makers. So I got to do a few episodes of Let the Right One In, which was done by Andrew Hinderaker, who's a Gift Theater Company member and a brilliant playwright. And then I got to do a few episodes of a show called Three Women, which is adapted from a Lisa Taddeo book, and Laura Eason, who's another Chicago playwright, was the showrunner on that. But both of those filmed in New York, and it is a very cool thing to step onto a set that is filled with people who are passionate about theater, because there's just a really cool foundation, and like just room to sort of stretch, and a lot of encouragement in a way that like it is very good for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And that was really cool journey on that. Yeah, the Chicago PD, Chicago Fire stuff can sometimes feel, it's like they've done this. It's a job, but to be able to relax into a space, sometimes when I've worked on a few sets as well, where it's just, you can tell there's a different feel as far as like, what am I trying to say? I mean, you said artisanal. Sometimes I feel like sometimes TV can feel that way, but or feel very much like we gotta get this done. We gotta move fast. And sometimes there is the sense of like
Yeah.
it's like an independent film, right? It's an independent film. We're gonna hang out and we're gonna, we're gonna learn more about these people and that sort of stuff. So I mean, both are valid and both both work.
Totally.
I mean,
Totally. And like you watch any of those Chicago shows, and you're like, this is incredibly successful. Like they have the benefit of having like 10 shows behind them with different vibes. And so then they get to sort of take all the lessons that they learned from that and put it into that. And so it's incredibly efficient, which is awesome. You're like in and out, but it's sometimes it's like, oh, we're moving so fast. If I'm a person who just needs a little bit of time to sort of like relax and feel comfortable, and they just, and I'm amazed by those actors, because they're like, we don't need that, we're ready to go. Right? It's incredible.
Yeah. That's great. I want to respect your time, and I appreciate this. And we should, again, as we talked about before we hopped on, we should totally like sit down and do a nice fancy video interview that we can post and dive deeper into all of these things, because I do want to do that. But as this is kind of a short, quick little video that we can put up and let people know about the work that we're doing here, I'm going to do this, which is put your class. Which way is it? This way. Here. So for those of you who who might be interested in working with Caroline, Caroline has a scene study class. I think when people scan it, it does like a little. This is my first time seeing it. They mentioned it last week. So feel free, scan. Okay. But it's fun. It's fun for me to watch.
They're going to be great scenes.
Yeah, and they'll be great scenes. So you'll get to work with Caroline on scene work. This is, the idea is theater based, but obviously acting is acting, right? And bring yourself to the room. Can you speak a little bit more towards? I mean, just while we have it up, can you speak a little bit more towards kind of like what, your approach, or what you might bring to the class?
Totally. So something that I like to do in this format is I like to work on hypernaturalism. I think a lot of our contemporary playwrights, who also, I'm just in an amazing way, again, like I feel like barriers are being broken down in a really cool way between theater and film and television. There's a lot of great theater makers that are now working in TV. They're now working in film. And I think that a lot of that language translates now really beautifully into both mediums.
Yeah.
And so one of the reasons why I like working with hyper contemporary playwrights is A, because I find their work is incredible, but B, I also think that it is a really good, it makes commercial and like, but not commercial, like for commercials, but on camera text, it just makes it less intimidating for me, because I feel like I have a relationship with that vocabulary and that dialogue before I walk into a room that feels pressurized because it's an audition.
Yeah. Gotcha. That sounds great. So if you're interested in that, there's that QR code, or again, you can just go to, wait, hold on, I'll switch it up here. You can go to, have it, vagabondschool.com. Spelled it right. Great. Go to vagabondschool.com. chicagoartist.com, and check out all of our classes there, including Caroline's, and sign up for classes there. Last thing I'm just going to say, you are here in Chicago right now. You were both in New York and Chicago, mostly. And you're in Chicago right now working on a show at Steppenwolf, which I will also put a QR code up for people who are interested in going to see you work at Steppenwolf. Can you talk a little bit about describe the night, the show you're working on right now?
Totally. It's a play by Rajiv Joseph. Austin Pendleton's directing. So both Steppenwolf Ensemble members. I think there's Sally, Yasin, James, myself, and there's 5 or 6 ensemble members in it. It's about the sort of slow rise of Vladimir Putin. And you watch from 1920 to 2010. It is epic in scope. It is about surveillance. It is about the way that we move through the world, knowing when we're being watched and hoping that we're not being. And yeah, it's really something. I mean, and I will also say the design I think is one of the coolest designs I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. I plan on
great cast, beautiful play.
I got the email from Steppenwolf, and I was reading about it, and I'm excited to try and come see it. So, thank you for talking a little bit about that. All right. Well, Caroline Neff, thank you so much for your time this morning.
My pleasure.
We will sit down. We can talk more later. Again, I do want to dive into all these because I just want to hear you talk because because everything, honestly, it's just so fun to hear. We've known each other for a bit now, and it's just I haven't had the opportunity or luck to sit in one of your classes, so it's just nice to hear your perspective and not to. You're not old. It's just the history of you started young. You've been doing it for a long time here in Chicago, and I think it just has a really great perspective. And again, even sorry, we didn't bring this up, and I did say I was going to respect your time, but even casting, it's deep, right? You did you did casting, so you've seen things from a casting perspective
for 10 years.
Well. Yeah, so at some point we can talk about that as well. But
totally.
Thank you, everybody.
Pandora's box.
Yeah, right. Well, we'll save it for. Honestly, we could do these. We'll keep doing them. We'll do another one in a month. They'll bring it back in. How's that sound?
Great.
Cool.
I love it.
All right, I'm gonna let you go, everybody. All right, bye, Caroline Neff.
Okay. Thank you so much. Happy Monday.
You too. All right, everybody. So thank you all for watching. Thanks so much for connecting here. We're going to try and do these again. If you're just kind of popping in, we're going to do these hopefully every Monday. We're going to try to start doing them on Monday. I have a class at noon, so I got to hop into that. But right now it's 11. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns about these, anybody that you want to see us talk to, feel free to send us messages, chat us up. We'll be posting this on YouTube and on the Facebook, so you can all follow along and watch this. And why not Instagram as well? We can post this on Instagram. So follow us there. Check out these things, and we'll start doing more of them. And again, you can, on any of these platforms, hop in, ask questions for Caroline or whoever the next guest is, and learn more about these amazing Chicago artists. So we're trying to lift up Chicago artists here, Chicago artists, actors, and just general people here in the industry. So again, thank you so much. Follow the open road here at Vagabond. We will see you next time. Now, where is that video thing that I have to put up? It's here somewhere. Okay, bye.